Show, we got the goods. This is your host Craftsdwarf here with Mathwiz yet again for more fucking Bleach.
More Bleach. And you all were wrong, all of you who said that Fullbring was bad, that we'd hate it. Nice try.
Yeah, what do you know? Bleach fans, or no, not even Bleach fans, Bleach haters are wrong. What do you know? It's like, Fullbring arc was good. The next arc's probably going to be good too. Like, I'm still worried for the ending, because it ends in a way, Kubo didn't initially plan for. So yeah, we'll see how I feel about that when we get to it. But I've heard some good things about the arc too. Not from the comment section, unfortunately. There was a few, some people trying to link us analysis. I should have specified that I wanted, the good, why Bleach is good, not the, 100th video on why Bleach got worse over time when it didn't. Because it's still good. If you don't, I don't know, if you don't like it, that's fine. Maybe you didn't like Bleach in the first, I had someone saying that the final Getsugo is an ass pull against Aizen, but it's I thought about it, it's that's the same shit he did against Kenpachi. He trained with himself. It's literally the same thing. In fact, it's even weirder with Kenpachi because he did it in, a few minutes, but, so against Aizen, he was in the time chamber for a bit, so it's okay, you could say it's a bit contrived, even though that was already established that time fuckery was about way back in Soul. All this happened in Soul Society. What puts Soul Society above what puts Soul Society above the Arrancar arc specifically? It was good, but I'm just what was so great about it that the Arrancar arc isn't good? Soul Society is a setup, Arrancar arc is the payoff.
I'd imagine maybe it's just that people just didn't pick up on this as much or didn't care about it as much back in Soul Society, and now it's more just reader fatigue, okay, this has happened again and again, and then I guess they're just not retroactively applying that to Soul Society.
Because it's people say Arrancar stuff is just Soul Society again, but it's they're exploring different thematic ideas, so it's or different avenues of Ichigo's character. You don't have fucking him going Vasto Lorde in Soul Society. That was a fucking amazing moment and a good exploration of Ichigo's character. Instead, you get people saying that Ichigo's a shit one-dimensional character, and it's no, he doesn't have a goal. He's worse than Naruto and Luffy. He does have a goal. His character gets explored in ways that are thematically resonant. His character in this arc too. In the Fullbring arc, he gets more exploration, and it's good and interesting, and I liked it. If you're Ishida gets a bit more focused this arc. Chad not so much. Because there was the one person who said all the four characters get an arc, or all the main characters kind of get an arc. But then it's Chad kind of if I didn't know that, I wouldn't have ever said that this was Chad's arc. We learn how he got his powers, but he has even less moments in this arc than he did in the previous arcs. He did more in Arrancar arc than he did in this one, honestly. So
this is where I kind of want to ask, because now I'm just in skeptic mode where anything that people suggest, I'm if I don't have a source, then it's just a rumor. But the thing about the Arrancar arc being lengthened and the Fullbring arc being shortened because of popularity and backlash, is there a source for this? Because I want to know too.
Especially because the Fullbring arc, I felt it was the perfect length. I don't see how all the characters that were introduced got fights. Again, it's Chad didn't do anything, but was he supposed to? Beyond what he did?
I felt there were certain little moments that just happened, there would be this one confrontation that happens, and then we get a flashback to it later where a thing happens with this character. I'm if this supposedly was shortened, was this kind of added in to speed things up?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So, I could see potential there, but it's nothing that's because, everything does wrap up pretty well. It doesn't feel there's this one plot thread that just got ignored because it had to end quicker or something. So it does all work out in the end. It just feels I feel there could be more meat to this arc, but, again, after the massive Arrancar arc that I think took years in publication, this one...
It was more chapters than the Shinobi War.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, having this is what I had been talking about with Bleach, that there weren't enough, tiny little arcs to break things up, to kind of... when I said, the pacing felt exhausting, is because it's just these big stretches of fights and it's a giant arc. Having these tiny little ones, while I won't say entirely necessary, it does help to sort of break things up a little bit. So this was a nice pit stop before the big...
Yes, like a little complete story in between two fucking massive mammoths.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's fair. Because we haven't seen anything like that since the first arc of Bleach, the original Substitute Soul Reaper. So, and this is the Lost Agents. So, anyway, as for comments, like most of them were just talking about the Fullbring arc for some reason, so I just ignored them. And then just more blanket complaints that I don't really agree with anymore. But I did. So we did get some analysis, especially on Curious Cat for me. Like I got like a follower or two on Twitter who are they're fucking good at analyzing Bleach because they've given us some mind blowing shit. And they also have some sources. Like there was one link to a Reddit post, which is definitely the most interesting Bleach analysis I've read yet. It's basically how Kubo deliberately used Nietzschean ideals when constructing Aizen's character. And the idea of questioning everything, the Übermensch, it's like 3,000 words almost. It was a good read, really good read. There was, my favorite part about it was that like how the whole thing is like Aizen didn't understand Ichigo, and the writer of the post didn't understand Ichigo either, so he just kind of glosses over it. And I thought it was perfect because this guy he has an understanding of Aizen, but he doesn't understand Ichigo, just like Aizen didn't understand Ichigo. It was funny. So it's like I feel like there are good ideas there, but they need because I already figured out Ichigo's deal, so I just thought it was funny. But it's like these analyses could be mixed with other ones, and I still because there's still that paper I haven't read on the Buddhist symbolism. So. And you learned some things about Gin, didn't you?
Oh, yes. So after the last episode, I had my big tirade about, oh, no, Gin is too simple of a character, and I might not like him as much anymore. Well, I mean, this is where, I remember back when I had made my thematic breakdown video with Sasuke and Kurapika, I had said that, oh, Sasuke starts off as a simplistic character, but then he gets more complicated later on, and that's why he's cool. I feel like Gin is a better example of a more simplistic character because his goal was just to kind of avenge Matsumoto, Matsumoto, that's the name.
Yeah.
Rangiku, I prefer, whatever.
I think I just say Matsumoto.
But yeah, so the thing with his character was that he was he's simplistic in that he was so devoted to, he went and acted out in this way that he didn't ever really need to do. He didn't have to confront Aizen because, if he had just waited, Ichigo would have shown up and taken care of him. But Gin was all no, I have to avenge Matsumoto. I have to do this thing. I have to be... somebody had said, if Gin was only doing it for Matsumoto, he was the ultimate white knight. And, I mean, he was wearing the white cloak, so I suppose it's fitting. But, yeah, he was so obsessed with his revenge on Aizen that he had spent all this time trying to do this one thing, but last time I was talking about the parallels between or potential parallels between Tosen and Gin.
Yes, that's what I thought was interesting because they both failed in the same way. They both got close to the side that they were gonna act out their vengeance on, and that's kind of what brought their downfall. Aizen understood Gin, and so Gin failed. Tosen's former subordinates understood him, and so Tosen failed. So yeah, that's what I found was interesting.
And then I guess
the rest of the game and the fucking poems.
Yeah, the poems. This whole time I thought that they were just there as an aesthetic thing to look cool on the volumes, but I didn't even consider that they'd be connected to the characters. So yes, I'm dumb.
Yes, some of the questions had some analyses of the poems. Especially the one that I found the most interesting was there's one because the poems generally relate to the character on the cover, and the one. There was a Gin volume and a Matsumoto volume right next to each other during the final stretch, and the poems can apply to actually both characters, so because they're connected. So I was like, that's interesting. He set up this thing of the poems, and then he meaningfully subverted it by swapping the poems basically for the two characters that are connected, and it's that's interesting. And just go through the Curious Cat stuff. There's some good there's some good analysis in there. So it's definitely worth a read.
But then I guess like the difference between Tosin and Gin was that Tosin was more about this kind of abstract idea of justice. He wasn't necessarily targeting a specific person, but he was targeting like an ideal, like a more what's the word I'm looking for? Like a societal thing, a
systemic. Yes.
Whereas Gin, his the sole focus of his revenge was Aizen, and he like dedicated his entire life because Aizen killed him. He's not coming back, unfortunately, and that makes me sad.
No.
But so Gin, you could argue that there's something Kubo's trying to say about revenge through these two characters, that they both dedicated their lives to the pursuit of this thing. For Tosin, it was more systemic. For Gin, it was more of an individual he was targeting. He was so devoted to Matsumoto, to trying to accomplish this thing himself, and it ends up getting both of them killed. I like how we had the speculation of like Tosin explodes into a pile of blood, but he might be okay.
He might be okay.
Yes, this is Bleach. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he comes back. I have no idea.
I'm kind of doubting it now that you mention it.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's the thing about no one dies in Bleach thing. I don't know where that came from. I have no idea. Like, only things I can think of are like Renji and Ganju back in Soul Society, where they got really fucked up, but they're okay. But then it's like, once you accept the character's durability, like, there's no, like, who's come back that we thought was dead? Like, no one in Arrancar, so like the whole saga. So, it's only Soul Society, the beloved Soul Society that has the fake deaths. I guess maybe it's not so great after all. But even then, I thought those were fine. So it's like, whatever. I just don't know where this meme came from, considering, like, I have no reason to think these characters aren't dead. The Espada, Gin, Tosin, like, they're dead.
And what I do think was interesting that I didn't really talk about last time, but I guess why I thought maybe they weren't dead was because I think of, Shonen Jump, maybe not all of Shonen Jump, but at least the stories I've read, like Naruto or Hunter x Hunter, these things, where like they tend to, well, I guess Hunter x Hunter not entirely, because there are some minor deaths that happen throughout, but like when a significant character dies, usually there's like, it's very extravagant, like when they go out, like you've got to have their final words. Like even with Naruto, you had like Asuma, you had Jiraiya, like they all get a big focus. Like even if it's a more minor character like Asuma, like they get their moment, like they're dying, they're dying, here are their last words, etc., etc. With Tosin, like he just kind of explodes and he's done. Like it just happens, and they don't dwell on it. With Gin, it just happens. Like he gets his sort of final moments where, with Matsumoto.
His was a bit more dramatic. Like, well, and he saw Ichigo coming in.
Yeah, and he saw Ichigo. But even then, it's not like after the fact, after the battle is over, we really dwell on it. Like you did get a bit with Matsumoto.
They were talking about it briefly, yes. But,
But yeah, I could talk for forever about Gin now, which is, I'm going to just save that for my own video. That's the thing. I'm like, more confident about making it now, because
we both have like videos. You have the Gin one. I have, I might talk about Ichigo and Aizen. I just don't want to talk about the themes of grief over the whole series. I don't know. No one gave me a real, like, Ulquiorra analysis that really go, like, when it's like the sin aspect of it, that I was talking about earlier, and I think maybe I did get one other perspective, but I forgot. So I might want to dig into that one myself. And then the whole fucking Nietzschean Ubermensch thing I realized can be applied to Naruto and One Piece too. So that's really fucking interesting. So I need to do some research on that. And I guess one that's less general towards Bleach is I want to do a video on long running shonen and basically story structure in long running series and how complaining about pacing is dumb. But anyway, yeah, so it's like, the Nen Show has been a great success as far as inspiring content.
Yes.
Because we in case you didn't know, you put up your Talk No Jutsu video and I put up my Sasuke analysis video. If you're subbed to both of us, you would have seen both the thumbnails in your box. So go listen to those if you haven't. And also, speaking of, I guess, inspired content, Cherry Boy Writer and Hunter x Hunter 2011 Dick Writing Association started a podcast called the Shonen Ronin Podcast, which is basically they a while before they added us on Twitter because I guess they had the thought in mind to do it, and it's I guess inspired from the Nen Show. I haven't listened to it yet, because I only just caught up to the Medaka Box chapter. They're doing it on Medaka Box right now, and I only just caught up to chapter 55, so I'll probably listen to it within a couple days. I'll link it in the description, so go check that out, especially if you've read Medaka Box. Just thought I'd mention it. And I think that's all the extra stuff. Because, yeah, no specific comments, just because they felt a bit samey after a while. So you're about ready to get into the discussion. Finally, I forgot what we're here for.
Yeah, Fullbring.
Yes, okay. So, yeah, like, right off the bat, I like the 2-page spread where the callback to the first one, but now everyone's facing away from Ichigo because, Ichigo is no longer even able to see ghosts. He's no longer in that world. So I thought, it was just a good way to, like, I just like how the cover page reflects that. So, and it's a nice callback. But yeah, Ichigo is back doing normal things. There's been a time skip of a year and a half, and everything's normal for Ichigo. But like I kind of like how like Ishida's like, I gotta go to the nurse's office, and he just runs off to go do some hollow hunting. And it's like everyone knows what's happening, but Ichigo's not able to do anything. So, well, even like I think they flash back to a moment where he he's like, oh yeah, in the past he didn't want to do the Soul Reaper stuff, but now he's gotten but now you have that sort of like conflict in what he wants. He previously didn't want to be a Soul Reaper, and he has that, but now he doesn't have the power to protect the ones he cares about. So there's a bit of a conflict there, and as we find out, he wants to protect people more than he doesn't want to be a Soul Reaper. So when the opportunity comes, he snatches it up. So yeah. Trying to think. Did you have anything else to say about the early stuff?
I'm just thinking of all the different, like, the character redesigns that start popping up, because there was a time skip, and Kubo's gonna make sure there was a time skip.
Well, that's the thing is, like, I think we talked about it with Naruto happened too, is, like, the redesigns, like, Ichigo looks a little different, like, Tatsuki's got longer hair, the one, I forget his name, the Playboy kid, he got tall, it looks like, I think that's him, yeah. The girls, his sisters, they got big. Everyone got bigger. Oh yeah, Chad got fucking facial hair. I was like, what the fuck? No, not totally unexpected, but yeah. Oh yeah, so we also find out that Ichigo got a job. Like, well, he's like selling out his physical skills to like different clubs. Like he'll play with them for a week or something like that, which is silly. But yeah, he oh. I love this. They were fighting a bunch of like gang dudes, and I love this one title page where they punched the fat guy, and the teeth had the numbers of the fucking chapter on it, and their sleeves had the Bleach. Like Kubo's title, like he has some really cool like title pages.
Yeah, I could really. I'm not sure if he had started doing this before this arc, but this arc in particular, like there were a lot of title pages where he was trying to like blend it into like the set design, into what's happening. Like it's a page of the manga and a title page at the same time, which is really. It's cool. Like he's had some cool looking ones before, but I don't think he's tried to incorporate them into the story like this. Because I've actually never seen that. Like I've seen cover stories. Like Hunter had a really brief one with Killua's the otaku brother Iluki where he was just sort of dicking around in Yorknu for a bit during that arc. There was just a couple cover pages of him just doing stuff. And One Piece will have full blown cover page arcs, where it's like for like 20-30 chapters, each page will be a panel of some former antagonists or former characters doing something on some island after their arc has concluded, kind of. And those arcs will eventually come back, like the characters from who did things on the cover arcs will come into the actual story later. But this is like incorporating the cover page into the manga. And yeah, it's cool, and especially this first one with the teeth, because having the numbers on the teeth is just a really fun way to introduce the chapter. It's good. No, I did this stretch of this early portion of the story, because I've said this before, that like if Kubo just didn't do an action story and he just wanted to draw some more like down to earth, just like a comedy or something sort of antics, I wouldn't mind it, because he's got a, like, there was this
Kubo can do comedy, yeah.
Yeah, like there's stuff going on here that really reminiscent of that the very first series of mini arcs that kicked off the story, and
Yes.
it's a lot of fun antics, a lot of goofy stuff going on. There's this one part where Orihime jumps out of a window and just slides down.
Being a fucking dork. Oh man, yeah.
But yeah, so like I don't know, like people. I guess there were some comments that like, oh, this arc wasn't very popular because it wasn't very Bleach, but I'm not, I wasn't super into the Bleach format. Like I've said previously that it was getting kind of tiring, so like I don't have a problem with this at all.
Actually, in one of the analysis, it's the one marked themes. At the end of it, he even because that I realized after at the end it's actually directed towards me, because it was sent to me through Curious Cat. And at the end of it, he says, like, oh, Mathwiz is probably going to like Fullbring arc because it's not very Bleach. And you literally just said that. Or, yeah, it's because he literally says it's Fullbring is the least Bleach-like arc in the series, so Mathwiz is probably going to like it. And then you literally just said that, so I'm like, yeah, this anonymous guy was on the nose.
To a degree, I understand that it's not all that Bleach, but at the same time, like, it's not Bleach, like,
right. Well, it's like as
I said, it was
like you were saying, it's got the comedy elements from early Bleach, which you also had back. Well, maybe not the comedy elements, but just this slice of lifey stuff back from the Arankar incursion section of the Huecamundo stuff. So it's not like it's but that's the whole point. It's like back to each goes back to normal basically. So.
Yeah, because I guess like the thing is just like, oh, there's no real Soul Society involvement at this point, and. Well,
Which makes sense. Ichigo can't see ghosts.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I hate to use words like this, but at this point I'm thinking that all the Soul Society elements are a little overrated. Not that word actually means much. Overrated, underrated, they don't really mean anything, but like...
I personally don't care for using the terms just because, like... What does it even mean? Like, because it's all in perspective. Like, if I liked Soul Society, then I wouldn't say it's overrated because I agree. But then it just means I disagree with what I perceive to be the popular opinion. And it's like, so I just, why use a word that has such a context-specific meaning? So that's why I personally don't use it. But I do understand the sentiment. I just don't use the word personally. But, so anyway, we get introduced to Ginjo, who is a big, important character this arc. And, well, I love, it's not his introduction, it's the next time he shows up where he comes into Ichigo's workplace. And he's like, how about some ramen? And Ichigo's like, no need, we're an eel shop. And the boss is like, no, we're not. And it's just like, it's framed so seriously, like the expressions, like there's something dramatic, like the two big panels, it's all dramatic. But the dialogue is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I fucking love it. It was good. Like he just looks so sinister, but he's like, ramen? And Ichigo's so, like, he's like intense, and he's like, no, we're an eel shop. What were you gonna say?
Well, I mean, this is one of those instances where, like, I don't know, like with Naruto, there weren't very many translators' notes to kind of hint in at, like, why some jokes worked. But, like, here, like, if we don't get the note saying that, like, this name means eel shop, then that wouldn't have worked. So, like, thank you, Viz.
I happen to know. Well, actually, I didn't. I knew unagi was eel, but I forgot that panya. Pan is bread, and ya would be shop. So panya would be bread shop, and so it's unagi ya. So yeah, but the note helps because I knew part of the joke, so I got the full thing thanks to the note. Yeah, and I mean, at least if you were watching the anime, you might have been able to catch it in the dialogue. With the even then, I don't know how, like, because I can hear words because I recognize Japanese syllables. I don't know how much people hear. Like I could, if I heard someone say a sentence, I could probably write out that sentence but I wouldn't be able to translate it without the subtitles. So I don't know. Anyway, So anyway, after that we get a bit. There's a scene with Ishida and Orihime, and I love the little bit where Orihime is like, what, he was hanging out with a weirdo? And Ishida's like, well, everyone he hangs out to is weird to some degree. And there's just this one panel of Orihime, like, all close to him. It's like something clicks. That you could just see the gears ticking in her brain where she's just like, oh, I'm a weirdo.
Yeah.
Orihime was cute, this stretch of chapters.
Yeah, this was a good Orihime stretch, even though, like, her role wasn't super significant, but hey, it's better than...
Well, she did more than Chad. I was kind of surprised about Ishida though, because he was doing like out of the three, because they're the like there's the main five: Ichigo, Rukia, Ishida, Chad, and Orihime. But like Ishida, I feel like did the most outside of maybe Rukia. They're about even because she only comes in towards the end. So
I don't know. Like earlier, you said I found it kind of funny. You're like Ishida kind of had stuff to do in this arc. I'm like, did he really? Did he really?
He was more relevant,
much?
At least. So, but I mean, again, it is Ichigo's arc.
But I thought this was the Chad arc. What are you telling me?
So yeah, Karin can see ghosts now, and well, she goes to see Urahara. I forgot how that came into play later at the moment. Because, well, Urahara obviously does stuff later. With he was helping Ishin to, let Soul Society know what was going on. But I forget about Karin specifically.
I don't know if it did come into play later. I'm not remembering anything. Yeah. But I guess that's another cool thing about this arc is that, like, the cast back in Karakura Town, it's not a bad cast. So, like, taking time to... I don't want to say focus on them, because they really didn't do a whole lot here, but, like, just give them screen time to do anything. It's not unwelcome.
Well, and there were, like, small moments, too. Like, one I liked was when, like, the arc starts out and Yuzu's, being her naggy little sister to Ichigo, and then, it's, like, sort of normal. But later on, like, she... does something and Ichigo's like, yeah, you look great, or like Ichigo's not Ichigo, and she has a really weird reaction. She's just like so not into it, and it's just, I thought it was interesting because it was like the opposite of normal, but it was worse because it was actually like it was just they have an interesting relationship, I suppose, and it was just a little scene. Like, it didn't matter too much, but it was interesting to see. But anyway, Ginjo, he says he can get Ichigo's abilities back, like. who surprising absolutely no one. Like, I wonder if some people see, the thing with predictability is I feel like it turns a lot of people off because they remember a time when they didn't understand, like, storytelling, and so they're like, oh, it's just but so that now they're like, they want to be surprised. Like, I think that's why people like stuff like Walking Dead or Attack on Titan, where all these characters suddenly die in brutal ways, and you're like, whoa, that's so unexpected. I didn't expect that. But obviously the important ones don't die. Game of Thrones. But then it's like, so when predictable stuff too does happen, it's people get dissatisfied. But like, at a point, you need to realize that when you understand storytelling, you need to be able to, like, understand that it's not what happens that it's important, it's why it happens that's important. Like, yeah, Ichigo gets his powers back. I was expecting that from the moment, like, but, like, what happened is when he gets his powers back, there's a character moment. Like, it matters. So it's not just him getting his powers back for the sake of getting his power back. There's meaning to it. Like, so the why is always more important than what, in my opinion. So, like, it's the same with, like, One Piece. Like, oh, Luffy's gonna be Pirate King, what a shitty story. If he didn't become a Pirate King, the story wouldn't fucking matter.
That's like if you said, like, Naruto becomes Hokage at the end of the story. Is that really a spoiler? Because, like, that's the whole point.
Yeah, Luffy obviously hasn't even done it yet, but it's like, it's yeah, and even then, it's like, would you be disappointed if Naruto became the Hokage? Like, you should have been expecting it. Why? It's so predictable, though. It's like, it's just that weird interim stage between, like, willfully, or not willfully, but just, not really understanding a lot about storytelling and just sort of going along with it, but not willing to, like, dig in and find the meaning when, instead just being disappointed. It's weird.
I mean, like, there is a level of appeal in unpredictability in stories, but, like if I think of like a story where like the character, like a main character, loses at times, I guess I'm less interested in like, oh, the protagonist lost. Like that doesn't always happen in stories. That's a surprise, but more like, who is this kind of a character? Like, why would they lose? How is it facilitating their growth that they lose here? Like when Naruto loses to Sasuke at the end of part 1, like why does he lose there? What does that mean for his character? And then you see that you see that progress throughout the story. But like when he like whether they win or lose, whether it's a surprise or not a surprise, it doesn't matter as long as it's like, it's more interesting to see how it affects the character. I kind of trailed off there at the end, but you get my point, maybe.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's more, well, because it can be handled poorly too. Like if a character loses and then they win again, even though there's no change, they didn't get stronger, they didn't change as a person. The villain, like, they just lost for some reason, and then they won for some other arbitrary reason. And it's like, yeah, so it's never the what. Everything can be executed well or poorly, I think. I like to think. So yeah, it's just a matter, again, it's a matter of the why. Why does it matter? And, Bleach matters. It has ideas. It works. It's good. Oh, I see what how Karin was, because the whole thing about the arc is trust. So, Karin was going to Urahara without telling, Ichigo, and Ginjo is using that to sort of like, give Ichigo some doubts regarding those around him. But, I definitely want to talk about that, especially when during their fight, because, I thought how that turned out, the conflict turned out was interesting.
Now that you mentioned trust, I've got things clicking in my head now. Oh, this will be
good. Right? Well, I had a little cheat sheet, because one of the Curious Cat questions I got mentioned that, all they said was that trust is important in the Fullbring arc. And as it was going, I was like, okay, I'm seeing it. And then when it finished, I was like, yeah, okay, I got it. Well, because, see, the thing about Bleach that's interesting is normally when I read something or watch something, it clicks together as I'm watching it. Like, something will happen and I'll just have, like, that click moment. I'll pause it and I'll write it down. But with Bleach, I finished the arc, and I had to, like, sit there and, like, make it click. Like, so I do think it's a bit more, like, so without talking about how it's presented, I do think just the fact that I have to think about it more, like, there's a bit more subtlety in its presentation than I'm used to. Like, because I had to dwell on it myself personally. So, and I like that, because that's the thing. Bleach is making me want to dig into it. Like, I might reread it shortly after I finish it, just for the sake of videos, because especially with, like, it goes A, I feel like it would be quick to reread, and B, it's like, it's the same thing with Naruto, where the early parts we weren't as into it because we weren't expecting it to be good. What was good about it hadn't clicked into place yet. See, now I'm like, oh, okay, like, how much of this stuff was always there? Like, the themes of, I never talked about the themes of grief in the first video. It was only the first episode of the podcast. It was only later, after I'd seen that other video, that I was like, oh yeah, this is totally there and totally doing a thing. So I feel like if I reread it, I'll get an extra perspective. So yeah. So anyway, yeah, Ichigo's still deciding on whether to train with Ginjo or not, and then he has a scene I was talking about earlier where Yuzu comes in. She's like, "Oh, I did good on my test," and she's like, "Wow, you did good," and she's just so weirded out. And and Orihime, of course, she's got bread. Just, the normal things are still going on while Ichigo's thinking. So, and then we get a bit of a scene where Ishida runs into a rather major player this arc, Tsukishima, and Ishida gets fucking destroyed. Though, as we find out later, it wasn't quite by Tsukishima. But anyway, they get called to the hospital and just sort of talking about, like, wondering what happened, which is hard to talk about because we know it happened. So it's like, whatever, let's just move on.
It was sort of interesting, at least at the beginning of the arc, how, because I guess if you do want to talk about this idea of trust, you have like, well, I guess Ishida doesn't really do anything at this particular moment in time, but, like, you have, early on, it's like Chad and Orihime are keeping secrets from Ichigo, because obviously he doesn't have his powers, and they don't want to put him in danger, so they're not trusting him. But then there's also, like, Ichigo was always the one who wanted to protect them, and here you have an instance of they are trying to protect him from something. And so it's
But yeah,
interesting to... I guess that's what made this arc sort of interesting at the beginning, was that, like, Chad and Orihime don't do much, but I feel like their characters have a little more, I don't want to say direction, but, like, agency in this arc. Like, they get to, I don't know, like, they're trying to keep things away from Ichigo. Like, they're trying to do things on their own, and, you know...
Yeah, because it's like Ichigo can't protect them. Because that's what he realizes after Ichigo gets attacked. He decides to do the training because Ichigo got hurt and he wasn't able to do anything. He can't protect anyone. But they also know that Ichigo can't protect them, so they're like, Orihime got stronger. She was able to do the later on. She used her powers to reflect. I think it was Ginjo's attack or something. She like reflected it back at him and. Or no, maybe it was Tsukishima, but it's like, yeah, so, you know, they're getting stronger, so, yeah, there's that, but, now you mention the trust, it's like, yeah, because they don't, like, you know, they probably know that, you know, Ichigo not being able to do anything is wearing on him, so they don't want to burden him with their stuff, so it's not, they're like, it's not necessarily that they don't trust him, it's that they don't want to burden him, I suppose, but, it is, like, they're also... not necessarily so, but I guess that is a form of distrust when, you know, they're not sure how he's going to handle it, so they're not even giving him a chance to weigh in, basically. So yeah, until of course this moment where Ishida got just destroyed. So anyway, Ichigo gets taken to the Fullbringer's place, and they talk a bit about Fullbring powers and how they work. Like they were so basically Fullbringers are people who their mothers were attacked while pregnant, and so now they can control souls. And yeah, and of course, as we find out, that's how Chad and Orihime got their powers, which makes sense because they were tied. So Kubo's had this shit in mind, potentially, since the fucking beginning of the series, basically. And we're, like, 400 chapters in, and he's, like, now getting to it, like... Because I think one of the complaints about Bleach is that, he's just making up as it goes along, but that's obviously not fucking true. Like, I don't think I've heard that from our comment section, but because people compare it to Dragon Ball in that way. Well, and I think you weren't accusing Bleach of it, but early on you sort of, like, got to the sentiment where it's like, the story could have ended after the Arrancar stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so it gives the sense that he's making it as it goes along, you know, like, where it's like, compared to this to Naruto or One Piece, where the main character didn't achieve their goal, so obviously the story's not done yet. But he is obviously planned it out to at least, this degree, and I'm sure we'll learn more in the next arc, so, about stuff. I don't know, I'm curious. So anyway, we get the first of the training arcs where he's in the dollhouse fighting the dude in the pig thing.
I guess another interesting thing about... I mean, I guess it's not exclusive, because there were a couple of, like, bankais or, you know, these powers that weren't directly sword-related, but, like, the Fullbring powers weren't exclusively swords, which was, you know, God forbid we have a fight that doesn't have two people swinging swords at each other. But, like, you know, you had the dollhouse girl, you had the video game guy, you had the person with the watch, the time.
Yeah, well, the powers, since they were more specific abilities, they also felt to me more like less like Bleach, like Bankais and stuff, and more like a Nen power or a stand ability from something. Like, since they have their rules and stuff, they feel like they're from a very different mold, which is good because they're supposed to be a whole different power set. And Orihime's powers it's interesting because now I think about it, like, no one knew what the fuck Orihime's deal was, but she's just a Fullbringer, a powerful Fullbringer. But potentially, because her fucking power can reject the rules of reality. But anyway, Ichigo figures out his Fullbring powers because he has to find out what object, and he focuses on his Deputy Soul Reaper badge, which, as we find out, is majorly important to him and Ginjo as well, because it's basically his bond between him and the Soul Reapers, like, even now when they're gone. But then, I guess we'll talk about that more later, because it becomes more interesting with the context of Ginjo's whole deal, too. So, unless you had anything to say about that.
Not at present.
Yeah.
Other than just, like, Ichigo had a power that wasn't sword-related for a moment there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, then Tsukishima attacks Orihime while Ichigo rounds out the training, and he teleports behind her because that's just how it goes. And she gets stabbed, but as we find out, that's his sword doesn't really cut. His fucking ability, like especially in his fight later, is fucking nuts. Like the things he could do with his power, holy shit! Like not just the memory alteration, but well, partly that. But it's like, goddamn.
In a sense, he's kind of like the Aizen of this arc, in that like he's got that ability to mess with people's minds.
That's what made me think of too, because we're just like, well, because it's it feeds into the trust aspect of it, because it's like it's similar but different in a way that's also thematically appropriate, because now it's like it's challenging, it's directly challenging. It's not just with Aizen, he made an illusion that was affected all of your senses. So it works into like the question everything, the understanding parts of it. Like one part from the analysis that blew my mind a little, because he talks about how it talks about how people should Aizen's whole thing is that he question things, like no one in the Soul Society questioned the 46 until Ichigo came in and their decisions. Like Byakuya was blindly following along, even if it would mean the death of his sister. But then, like, when Aizen went into that passageway to Soul Society, and there was, like, the monster thing that, like, Agin was like, no one can kill that thing, so we gotta run. And Aizen just destroys it. And it's like, and it points, in the analysis, it pointed out that, like, no one questioned, like, basically, no one questioned that the thing could be destroyed. Like, and I thought about, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Ichigo could destroy it, too. It's just that the idea of the thing was more powerful than the thing itself, and so it fits Aizen's powers. But this is more, since it directly affects your perception. It's not like creating something that you perceive. It's like straight up fucking with your mind. It feeds into the trust thing. So it's similar, but it's different in a way that's thematically appropriate. So I see what you mean when you say he's like his powers like Aizen's in that way. So yeah. So anyway, after the training against the Yakuza stuffed animal, Ichigo gets in a fight against Jackie, the next Fullbringer. Forget if I had anything specific to say on that one. I mean, aside from the teleporting, in which she goes behind him and he goes behind her. He figures out his power a bit more, and he uses it like, I kind of like the trick where he expected her to find out the weakness and deliberately use that. And he sort of he levels up his full ring powers a bit more, getting closer to the what they need.
And like when I talk about this being, this arc having differences from like all the Soul Society related stuff, this is where it's like, okay, he's got his sword now, he's got his cloak, his robe, but it's just Fullbring. I thought that was kind of funny, but I mean, it's just
it's like
not like there's anything wrong with it. It was just like, oh, okay, this is a little. Huh.
Yeah, well, it because the whole thing is that he's so tied to his Soul Society stuff that even when he it changes his Fullbring to something he can wear, it's still tied to Soul Society, like visually too. So even though he's technically not using a sword, he's still using like the projectile weapon. So anyway, Ichigo finishes training and he gets in a brief spat with Tsukishima, and Ginjo saves him.
Oh, actually, now I'm putting a couple of extra things together. Some of it for later, but like. I did like how the thing with the Fullbring powers was like based around pride. So like for Chad, he had pride in his skin, as he said, like pride in his heritage. So like his arms became his power. And then like with Ichigo, he took pride in his Soul Reaper powers, because that was like what they were saying with him, and he was like, I can't think of a moment where I wasn't not proud of my Soul Reaper powers, because it would allow me to protect people. And that certainly plays into a moment that happens later, which I'll save for now.
I'm not specifically sure what you're mentioning, but I'm sure I'll remember when we get to it.
But just like along with trust, you do have like elements of pride being brought up in this arc, which is again, I'll save it for later.
So anyway, Tsukishima gets sent off by everyone while Ichigo starts the video game training against Ginjo.
Yeah, this was one of the moments where I thought, like, if it's true that this arc had to be shortened, this was where I got a little perhaps a little skeptical because like they have that exchange and everybody like they're able to ward him off, but then you kind of get the flashback later on when they're training that Chad actually got stabbed by him, so now he fell under the power.
Mm-hmm.
But because it happened in a flashback, it just felt kind of weird that was how Kubo would show it, because I don't know, it just seemed strange. But
yeah, I'm not sure. Oh yeah, and there's the moment of I guess they're when they come in to train too, they're talking about what I was mentioning earlier about how they don't want to, Ichigo wasn't able to protect them, so but they actually trained knowing that, expecting that he would get his powers back, because they don't want to hold him back. So see, I'm worried because I feel like if the next arc got cut off early, that means that, like, I imagine the last characters who would have gotten their, like, resolutions would have been the main ones. Like, those might have been, like, the last 5 fights, is Ichigo's, Rukia's, Chad's, Orihime's, and Ishida's, And maybe some of the other ones, like, important ones, too. But so I'm like, so if the arc got cut off before Kubo, had originally planned it, do those characters get their resolution? I'm worried. Probably not. But,
well, because from how I understand it was that Kubo had planned to make the series longer than it was, but then he just
his health couldn't manage, so he just sort of finished it, basically.
Yeah, but he had also said, I forget what interview I saw it in, but like he had considered like ending it earlier than he ended up doing now, but he wanted to see it through to a conclusion of some sort. So I don't know, maybe he rewrote the story in a way that would wrap up the characters could still get their moments, maybe.
Yeah.
Although at this point, I feel like calling Chad a main character is a bit of a stretch.
I say it because he was like, he got his own arc. Well, I guess Colin did too, never mind. Colin didn't even show up this stretch of chapters at all. I mean, I'm sure you don't mind. I just only realized it now.
And the story was none the worse off for Kon not appearing.
I didn't even realize it until just now. Because, I mean, it makes sense because Kon was mostly there to let Ichigo go Soul Reaper and have his body be able to do stuff, but now Ichigo can't be a Soul Reaper. But did they even address what happened to him? Like, I'm not even sure if he was even mentioned. Like, he's just been completely forgotten. Huh.
Now I'm doing all these weird character comparisons in my head because I keep thinking about Chad and how he's, he's supposed to be main character level importance, but like someone had said, like, compare Orihime to Sakura. I'm thinking more like compare Chad to Sakura. Like, if you want to talk about like the meme that Sakura is useless, what about Chad? What has he done?
Yeah, I mean, he's gotten some fights and then he gets wrecked, and then that's it. That's all he's ever. No, yeah, basically. That's fair. Like, cause I definitely like Orihime is cuter than Sakura. She's funnier than Sakura. Her power is cooler than Sakura. Like, just saying. And well, I said cuter, and I'm like, look, her eating the donuts, and she's so good.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're obviously Team Rukia here.
But I'll let Orihime take these points. She deserves them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I had messaged you in the I had been talking to you before the podcast, and I had said, like, I don't know, like, Orihime, everybody in the narrative is like, oh, Orihime is so hot, like, she's the good looking character, and I was like, okay, yeah, she's fine. This was the first, like, this panel of her with the donuts was the first I was like, oh my god, my heart, I can't take this. It's too sweet, too cute.
And like when Riruka's like, you can only have one, and then Orihime starts crying after she reaches for another one and gets scolded, and it's like, she's so fucking good.
I also thought it was kind of interesting, just like, considering like just the way her character is. There was also like a more serious panel, like she's talking about like her backstory, like, oh, I think my parents were abusive and my brother died, and so like she's got like this tragic anime backstory, but she's just like shrugging it off, and like,
yeah, well, and I like the explanation because it's like, it's because Ichigo's so reliable, she doesn't feel the need to mope and cry about it because, you know, she's got people in her life who, you know, will help her and she's willing to help him. Like, and because, you know, is initially like rejecting that. So
and I just thought that was interesting. Not that like I don't know, not that like tragic anime backstories are a bad thing, but like just it's an interesting insight on Orihime's character that like she has gone through, like she's not just a cute manga anime girl, but like she's gone through, like she's got a rough backstory, but she's moved beyond that because like,
well, because it's like even when the series started, she was still her derpy self, which was kind of like, you know, that coping mechanism defense thing.
Yeah.
But then, you know, the backstory, the arc happened where her brother was hollow, and she moved on from that. And now, like, we're seeing her, like, now, like, you get like, these characters have seen some fucking shit, you know, through Soul Society and the Arankar stuff. And you can kind of see that with how, like, look how relaxed Orihime is. Like, she's, you know, this is nothing to her. You know, her you know, her own backstory, she's had other things happen to her, too. It's like, yeah. Oh, yeah, and I like how when Ichigo is fighting, there was a great bit of foreshadowing, where, like, he compares Ginjo to Gin, where it's like, you know, with Gin was, you know, his thoughts were completely beyond Ichigo, so Ichigo couldn't understand Gin, because, you know, like, Gin wasn't being honest in his sword. But with Ginjo, as we find out, there's nothing, like, what he's really fighting for is completely hidden, so there's nothing for Ichigo to get there either. So I just thought it was a really, like, I figured something was up, and I was interested. And then when we actually see what happens, I'm like, oh shit. And I thought back and I was like, yeah, it's just a solid bit of foreshadowing.
Although now that you bring that up, like, just all throughout this podcast, every time you've mentioned Ginjo, I just keep thinking of Gin, because Gin is in the name. I'm like,
right. I thought about it, I'm like, that's not going to be confusing at all.
Although I did think it was, like, just going back to that topic of, like, plot twists and, you know, surprising the reader, it was interesting how Kubo played with Ginjo's character in this, well, obviously only in this arc, because this is the arc where Ginjo shows up, but how, like, Ichigo doesn't trust him, but then Ichigo does trust him, but then Ichigo never really fully trusted him, but then Ginjo's like, okay, really I'll be the bad guy you want me to be, and it's like, oh, now Ichigo can trust him. But then...
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely talk about that, because that's definitely the most interesting stuff. Although I like how he does the... He was like, oh yeah, I'm going to kill Chad and Orihime, and he gets Ichigo mad, and like he forces Ichigo to have a desire to protect, to get him to unleash his power. He's even like, sorry, I was such a cheesy bad guy, and then later on, oops. But yeah, it's just... he's just... you know, understanding Ichigo's character and abusing that to get him power. So yeah. Oh, and then we get to the real shit. Say Ichigo finishes his training, he unlocks his powers pretty much fully, and he goes home. And who's that on the couch? It's Tsukishima. And this whole section of just like Ichigo suddenly not being able to really trust anyone because everyone's had their fucking minds screwed over by Tsukishima. Like, he gets the fucking the eel lady, I don't remember her name. Like, even she, it's like she's like this person who's largely disconnected to Ichigo, but even Tsukishima got her too, and it's like this big, like, just all these this shit just kept happening. Like, honestly, it reminded me of at the end of Soul Society with Aizen, of just like the quantity of like what the fuck moments, like one after the other. And I think I also like this part in particular because I like the trope of the main character is no longer like, although all those around him have their memories fucked with, so they don't really recognize the main character in the same way. And it's like, because that happened in Ushio and Tora in the final arc, and Tiger and Bunny in the second half, and those were great parts of the show. And now you have the same thing happen, because it's like, I don't like mind control, but this isn't mind control. It's just it's just a slight mind manipulation. Like, they're still the same characters. They just now see Ichigo as like someone who's like mindlessly attacking his friend for some reason. And so,
yeah, it's not like, oh, Ichigo has to fight all of his friends now because they don't recognize him at all. It's cool in that, like,
Ichigo's trying to fight Tsukishima, and they're like, "What the fuck?" Like, if it's just suddenly decided to fight Orihime or Ishida, they'd be like, "What the fuck, dude?" and try to stop him. And it's like a completely natural response. Like, because what mind control does is it removes the character that's there and replaces it with just like an empty husk, like just a generic evil thing that's acting against the characters. So that's kind of why I don't like it.
But then the narrative will still try to, like, well, maybe not always, but will at least sometimes try to act as like, oh, this character did this thing, but it wasn't actually that character doing that thing.
Yeah, that's always annoying. Yeah, like, so I'm sure mind control can be used well. Like, one instance I think I talked about in Naruto too, because it came up. But it's like in Superman the animated series, Superman gets mind controlled and starts fucking over Metropolis. But like the whole thing, the mind control isn't important. What kind of comes in later is like how that affected the setting, especially in Justice League, where like it instilled this fear of superheroes because like, yeah, Superman can turn on the world and no one can stop him. Like the ramifications that resulted from mind control were interesting, so I was more fine with it. But it's like, anyway, back to
another
this,
good example of mind control was that scene in Naruto with during the war with Haku and Zabuza, where they come back it's like.
It's like body control. Their minds are still working just fine. It's their bodies that are. No,
because there's a part where Kabuto like shuts off their minds as well. So like they like it's a good way to show like the contrast between that original fight where you see their human flaws, whereas you flip that.
Well, because it's the human tool dynamic. Like there's meaning in it. Yeah, instead of just like forcing a conflict, which is so easy in like superhero stuff. And like you could almost see how like Orihime is mind controlled, so now you got Ichigo versus Orihime. Like that wouldn't have been too great, because again the character would have just been gone from the conflict unless there was meaning to draw from it. So yeah, that's why I'm usually not a fan of mind control. I just find it cheap because it removes like character actions. But this works because like they're still the characters. There's just like one thing about them that's just off, that's just incorrect. And like, so it was really fun reading the stretch of chapters because I'm just like, Tsukishima, you bitch! I fucking hate you. Like, goddamn, I did not like him, and for in a good way.
Yeah, this was when like as far as like when the arc I think was at its peak, like when I was enjoying it the most. This stretch was good. I like the whole.
Well, like there's the moment where they go into the house and there's like a streamer goes and they're like everyone's like welcome back, and or Ichigo's just fucking horrified. Like it's like everyone else is so happy, but it's the juxtaposition is so good. God, and then of course Chad and Orihime fight back against Ichigo. It's like yes, this is all really good. So then we get a bit of a twist. This was where the what the fuck moments continued, where Tsukishima teleports behind Ichigo and stabs Ginjo. And at first I was like, oh shit, he stabbed Ginjo. But then what happened after that was super fucking crazy. Because Ginjo and the Fullbrings, they had already been stabbed before they even met Ichigo. To think that they were the enemies of Tsukishima. But now they get to become themselves for real. So it's like, so we find out why Ichigo wasn't able to like understand Ginjo after fighting him, because it wasn't the real Ginjo, and now he's I didn't see it coming. Like I knew the guy looked villainous like from the beginning, but I was fine with it because he's a good guy after all. But then never mind.
And then like you want to keep talking about this idea of trust because you get that moment where Ishida shows up and Ichigo hesitates, like, can I trust Ishida? And then that kind of, I think that's what ends up getting him stabbed because like he didn't react quick enough.
It was like I think the way they put it later is it was like a test because they deliberately did during the flashback. They deliberately didn't cut Ishida with Tsukishima's powers, so it's like. Ichigo would have to find out the difference between Ishida, who trusts Ichigo because he knows Ichigo, and Ginjo, who trusts Ichigo because he was, mind manipulated by a power. And so I guess that's the thing. He was, because he had that. So it's actually, I just thought about it. It's actually Ichigo's like what ends up defining him from Ginjo in my mind is kind of what fucked him over in this moment. because he does have that doubt. Like, that's the thing with Ichigo. He is able to doubt, and that's what separated him from Ginjo, because that's what happened. He saw Ishida and he doubted. Like, if he had blindly trusted him, it would have been fine, and he might not have even gotten stabbed by and gotten his powers taken away. But instead, he did have that doubt. So
yeah, there was that moment where, like, here's Ginjo, a guy who, for a decent amount of this arc, if not a majority of it, Ichigo didn't fully trust him. It was a guy he had just met, but juxtaposed against Ishida, who was, like, you know, someone he knew for, you know, well before this arc.
So long, yeah.
So, like, he even had that moment where he couldn't decide whether he should trust the guy he just met or the guy he met, like, 17 months ago.
Right. Well, because the other thing is that with Ginjo, because he was helping out during the Tsukishima thing, because he hadn't gotten it appeared like he was still on Ichigo's side where no one else was. So, like, you know, it makes sense. Well, Ichigo would trust him more in that moment because he seemed to be more trustworthy than the people he'd been close with for years. But that moment of doubt, and he got and then you get his dad and Urahara show up because we saw them scheming earlier. And Rukia showed up, and oops, she stabbed Ichigo through the back. Oh no, but no, it's fucking great.
Well, you're jumping a little ahead.
I'm jumping a little ahead. Okay,
because there's this one moment I really want to talk about, because this is where I thought that the arc became really great, and then it just stopped. But
oh no.
So you get this moment where, you know, Ichigo, he's been cut down by Ginjo.
Oh, okay.
And then Ginjo stabs him and takes away his Fullbring, takes away his powers. And you get this moment where Ichigo realizes, like, he wanted to regain his powers. He was so obsessed with regaining his powers to protect his friends that, you know, his pursuit of regaining his powers put his friends in danger. So, like, his desire to protect his comrades put them in danger, whereas they wanted to protect him. He didn't have that trust in them. Like, he was so obsessed with getting his powers back that he puts them in this position. So in his effort to protect his comrades, he does the opposite. And it was an interesting character moment.
I didn't think about that, like, in that way. Yeah, because you're right. He didn't trust he wanted to be able to protect them. Well, because Ishida failed to protect himself, basically. He got wrecked. He was attacked by two guys, so it's kind of fair. But, you know, Ichigo saw that, and he's like, you know, he kind of, in some level, decided that he couldn't trust his friends to protect themselves, so he had to get his own powers back. And that's a failing.
And then the fucking Soul Society showed up, and forget all that. See, this is where, like, my opinion kind of loops back around to being the popular one, that Fullbring isn't that great, but, like, for different reasons. Because it felt like we had something here, like something with Ichigo's character, like something really meaningful. And then Soul Society just shows up and, hey, here are your powers back again, and forget that. So,
because there's Soul Society. Ichigo's relationship with Soul Society is definitely, like, it goes further too, especially.
Well, yeah, there is more to the trust aspect there.
Yeah, well, yeah, yes, but it's like because, like, you know, Soul Society's, you know, they're saving Ichigo in his time of need, you know, because he saved them. So it doesn't quite, the trust aspect not as much, but the mutual protection, yeah, because now they're protecting Ichigo, and they're able to help Ichigo be able to protect again. Like, I was actually pretty hyped when it happened because I didn't expect them all, and they all have their time skip designs, and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, that
so we had, like, the opposite reaction.
That was a little interesting because, like, as far as, like, time skip redesigns, at first I was a little thrown off because, like, wait a minute, they're in the Soul Society. Why would they need to get redesigns? Because, like, a year for them is like a day in the real or something. You know, I'm just making up numbers here, but, like, these guys live for, like, ever. So the year would be less important for them, but they still get the redesigns, which is, you know, fine. It was a time skip. I understand why they would get redesigns. But just, like, in universe, it's a little nitpick, like, they also changed. But, like, I don't know. This was the moment where I thought, you know, maybe this arc was cut short because, like, I don't know, I just felt like there was more to explore with Ichigo and maybe it could still be explored in the Blood War. I don't know. Insert comment reply with a timestamp saying ha 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 ha. That doesn't happen. But but I don't know. It just because like with Ichigo, like he's been the hero of the story. It just felt that would have been an interesting conflict to explore more. That like his pursuit of power cost him everything, and it put he put his friends in danger. He did that, but
Yeah, I'm trying to, because the like I said, the trust thing with Soul Society comes up later, but I'm trying to think of it in the context of this moment specifically.
There is more here to like redeem his character, because the
thing is, or go on,
because like he had built up, trust with the Soul Society. The fact that like his efforts with the Soul Society gained their trust, so like something from before was coming back to help him now, I guess, in this moment, like on the topic of trust. I don't know. I guess it makes sense that the Soul Society would show up. I guess it didn't feel like there was enough consequence in this moment for Ichigo for like having. I mean, like the fact that this happened, like I don't know, like he had put himself in this situation. I guess I didn't feel like there was enough consequence out of that. Like I don't know. I'm not super upset that this happens, but
no, it's fine. Well, because he didn't doubt his desire to get more power. He never, because again, he's just so sort of, he is sort of wanting to protect so much, but again, that past desire to protect is what changed Soul Society. Because that's the thing, is Soul Society is different now than it was at the start of the series because of Ichigo. They mentioned that later, and how because everyone came to help Ichigo. Like he feels the energy of like fucking everyone except Unohana, fucking even Yamamoto, just like Shinji, like everyone basically. So so it's like everyone's helping him, but
there could very well be elements here that I'm still not understanding, because I have shown a lack of understanding in Bleach in the past that I've just look at Gin. I kind of
I don't know. You had a good perspective. I'm just like, that's the thing. It's like with Bleach, it's like with Naruto, if there's a problem, it's usually clear enough that it's like, yeah, we can see it as a problem. But with Bleach, it's like I've been shown before that my mind has been blown so many times, and it's like I'm wondering like, what are the real flaws of Bleach? Like, because you do have a good point. Ichigo, he didn't doubt his own perceptions of his own desires of what he wanted. And his desire to get more power kind of fucked him over. But then that goes away like immediately. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm not sure how else the arc could have progressed. But that's not a good excuse either. So,
because like especially considering what happened in the last arc, where against Ulquiorra he went berserker mode, and his desire to protect had become toxic at that point. And then you had with Orihime, she wants to get. She wanted to get stronger to be able to protect Ichigo, and I would like to see, maybe we'll see it in the Blood War arc, because if it's not there, I'm going to be really disappointed. But like, I want to see that level of like, because that just seems like that would be the logical place for this whole arc, this like character arc to lead to, is that these characters who Ichigo had to protect at one point, and it put him to this point where it would like, he would end up having to sacrifice this like. Yeah. I don't know, his desire to protect had become somewhat toxic, and this is the second example we've seen of that. And so I would like to see in the next arc, everybody gets to like stand alongside each other. They all get to, like, not necessarily that Ichigo can't protect anyone, but like the people he's protecting can also stand up to protect him. And like Soul Society can do that. Soul Society has done that. But like out of the human characters,
that's what they're doing right now, even. But that would be good. Well,
I just want to see it from
kind of like
that, like these supposedly main characters who haven't done a whole lot up to this point, like at least on that level, like they haven't been able to protect.
See,
Ichigo.
When you put it like that, I think because if it gets come back to later, because like like the way you're describing it is basically like his friends failed to protect themselves, and now Ichigo's failing to protect himself. Like so, they're both sides are failing to mutually protect each other. So, but where Soul Society is able to succeed, so because Soul Society is able to, I guess maybe that's the thing. It's like, were his friend? I just realized his friends weren't really helping Ichigo, were they? They were trying to get stronger on their own. Ichigo is trying to get stronger on their own, and they all failed. But Soul Society tried to get Ichigo strong. Like they want Ichigo to get stronger, and they're letting him do the Fullbring training, but they didn't really help. Like Orihime was healing him, I suppose, but and Chad gave him advice. Okay, so maybe that's not true, but it's like, but even then, it's like, is that as much? At least it's not as much help as he's getting from Soul Society.
Well, yeah, because there were moments where like Chad and Orihime were trying to keep secrets from Ichigo because they wanted to protect him, but they weren't because they weren't trusting him. They weren't letting him in on the conversation.
Right, well, 'cause I just had a thought. If Chad knew how Ichigo could get his Fullbring powers, then why wasn't he help? Like, why rely on these complete strangers when he could just help him on his own? So yeah, there's a bit of a lack of trust kept these characters from solving the situation. Like, they had a fucking over a year and a half. Like, if they really wanted to help like Ichigo get stronger, but instead they just tried to get stronger on their own. Okay, I think I might have just fixed it.
I wouldn't say that it's fixed completely. Like, this is all well and good, but again, it needs a payoff. Like, this has to lead to something.
Especially, yeah, let's hope so. Because I mean, I'm a bit more like you had a good point, but now I'm like, okay, well, now it's like I understand a further depth of Ichigo's failure. Like, it's not just Ichigo's failure; it's everyone else's failure too.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, it would have been nice to see the character moment, the low linger a bit more, like, because that panel with him like screaming in the rain is like, it's a good panel. But then it's like a couple pages later, he gets stabbed. And it's like, it keeps getting worse. But no, it was Rukia and everything's okay. Yeah, so I could definitely understand that feeling, but I do think like, yeah, it's definitely interesting now that I've dug into a little bit more. Because that's the thing with Bleach. I feel like if you just dig in a little bit more, you know, maybe it's not that bad. So, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm really afraid and excited for the last arc. Oh man, but I'm definitely enjoying Bleach right now. I'll say that. So anyway, yeah. Are we finally done with that?
For now.
Yeah. Okay, for now. So yeah, Soul Society comes in. Yeah, the way they give him his power back makes total sense because that's what they even mentioned. That's what Rukia did in the very beginning. So it's like, yeah, they just straight up give him his soul energy. So
although like because it did happen in this way, this is probably something I'm more just overlooking things, but it did feel like it sort of maybe not completely invalidated. I could just be missing a detail here, but like. They could have just done this. Like, they could have just given him his powers back, and this arc wouldn't have needed to happen.
You mean,
but
I don't think so. I think he needed to unlock his Fullbring power to sort of, like, allow him to get his soul energy back, I think. Like, because he couldn't get... That's the thing, is he couldn't get his Soul Reaper powers until he became a Fullbring. So, I imagine the way I see it is, like, it's sort of a back door, kind of, to getting his Soul Reaper powers back. And if they just gave him soul energy back, it would have been through the front door. So they were only able to do this after he got his Fullbring powers, basically. So, yeah, so it's like, yeah, they could have avoided the arc if, like, Chad and Orihime had figured out the Fullbring stuff on their own and you know, not trusted Ginjo, and then after he got his Fullbring powers, then Soul Society. But it's like, that's kind of the thing, though, is that Ichigo, you know, let himself get tricked by this person. You know, he still doubted him, but yeah, that's how it happened. But yeah, that's kind of how I see it. But anyway, I do like this moment where Ichigo like attacks and Ginjo's like, "Oh yeah, what is that? Your Getsuga Tensho? That's it? You're not gonna be able to kill me with that." And Ichigo's like, "That was just my sword pressure, dude." And it's like, oh, shit. So anyway, they start their fight. Their fight.
And what do you know? When the Soul Society shows up, the problems that hadn't been not, you know, the things I took issue with in the past come back with them.
Yeah, well, you just gotta. Well, you got the fights, you know, the one-on-one fights, you know. How it goes.
Not to say that there weren't one-on-one fights in this arc, but there, I don't know, like they were broken up a little more because there was like a lot of. I don't know, because this arc was smaller, like there was more room to have more dialogue and character exploration, and there wasn't as much room to have a bunch of one-on-one fights happening. But then Soul Society shows up and they all happen. It's like, no. That wasn't what made this arc special, and now we're meh. Although I did like the part where,
I mean, come on, how
like it's not that these fights didn't have cool moments. Like the part where, because how much I just adore when characters just bulk up and like, oh, I'm powerful now because I'm bigger. So it was very satisfying to see Kenpachi just cut the guy down in one swing.
Fucking Kenpachi. He's not even enthused. He's just like, meh, boring. Like, yeah, he's right. You're right. It's like he's got the most simplest, boring power. So of course Kenpachi's fucking bored.
Yes, Kenpachi was me. So like that was very satisfying to see. Like I don't want to see this fight. Like the big monsters that everybody's got to gang up on. The big guy who just bulks up and slows down a fight because I'm big and powerful. You can't stop me. Nah, that's lame. Kenpachi cuts him down. It's good.
Dropped like a sack of rocks. Yeah. And of course, come on, you can't hate Rukia being surrounded by cute things.
No, that was good too. Like,
don't think you can
it wasn't that
the
fights were bad. Like, the fights were, like, I will at least say that these fights were more interesting than some of the Arrancar fights that happened. You know,
yeah.
Then again, there were so many fights in the Arrancar arc, obviously some of them would not be very entertaining.
Course, yeah.
But yeah, these ones were good. It's just like, oh, we got to break off into the one-on-one fights. But no, the fights were fine. Most of them, at least. Like
well, and of course they do the Arrancar thing where they sort of deal with their own idea, like with Ikaku against Shishigama, I think the luck guy, where it's like, you know, they're you know, they're doing with luck again. So it's like it doesn't like, I don't think anything about their fight really factored into the trust element. I don't think, like, it's just a bit of, there was just experience where the luck guy's power ran out, so he lost.
I mean, like,
there
was
really fought with it.
There was kind of the bit with like, if you want to talk about trust, there was, because he was the subordinate for the other guy.
Tsukishima, yeah.
Yeah, Tsukishima.
Yes.
So like there was a little bit there, and like just thinking about Ikaku's, you know, knowing that Ikaku places that much trust in Kenpachi, and you know, vice versa. So like to explore that dynamic through this newer character, like that worked. Also, can we talk about my man Ikaku just,
I forgot
you know, popping a dislocated shoulder, flexing a dislocated shoulder back into its socket?
Flexing it, not even using his other arm or like a wall or something, just like, he just does it. And you're right. When I actually forgot about, I was just thinking about like the abilities, because you're right, there was the trust thing, because Ikaku is able to trust Kenpachi, and he expects, and you know, they're both comrades in arms, you know, but Shishigami doesn't have that with Tsukishima. So there's an ideological fair there too, and I feel like the weakness to his powers makes sense. Well, it's interesting because it's like, the thing with probability is that probability doesn't change, and yet it's funny how the human mind works, where it's like, you know, you can ask a random person on the street, you flip a coin 45 times, and you get heads every single time, 45 times in a row. What's the chance? What will the coin land on next? And so many people might say tails, but it's still a 50-50 chance. Like, that's the thing. So it's like his power works with how the human mind perceives probability, where the probability lowers over the time of it being useful, kind of. So I thought that was mildly interesting. Hitsugaya fights the gamer guy. Renji fights, Jackie. Byakuya fights Tsukishima. Trying to think if I had anything else to say about those fights, specifically. Oh yeah, Hitsugaya beating the gamer guy was, you know, he just hides behind him and lets his own power. I don't know about it, if there's an ideological thing there though. Like, I'm trying to remember if any of the fights were as good as the Ikaku one. Oh, the Tsukishima Byaku. Like, did you have anything to say on the fight against with Hitsugaya's or Renji's fight?
Not really with Renji's fight. That one was pretty uninteresting. The only thing I was thinking of with the Hitsugaya one is that was probably the fangirl fight, because you got the two cute boys.
The cute boy against the cute boy. Yeah.
Not that like again, like when people, there's the meme that like, oh, here comes Hitsugaya because ratings are low or whatever. Like, I don't know. So far, I haven't felt that with Hitsugaya, because like he's showing up in a group. It's not like he's just showing up himself, and like, I don't know, like he doesn't get a super major role.
Like, if I had a question, it's to be like, why Hitsugaya here? Like, everyone else has a connection to Ichigo, but Hitsugaya not really. So it's like that I can kind of see, you know, like Renji, Byakuya, Kenpachi, Ikaku, like they've all fought Ichigo. So, but Hitsugaya hasn't. So in that, he doesn't really have a reason to be here, but he is. So,
well, there went my tiny modicum of praise for Hitsugaya out the window.
So yeah, I guess, I mean, I don't mind it, but it's definitely like, it is a bit of an anomaly. So yeah, he probably is only here because he's popular and he's got a post time skip design, and so whatever. Kubo, you do you. And you know, there was a fight in it. it was again. I just prefer the Ikkaku one and the Byakuya one.
Yeah, the
'cause
Byakuya fight was interesting.
Like, honestly, as far as, like, technically interesting fights, like, Tsukishima had so many fucking weird applications to his power. I was just like, what the fuck is he doing? What's going on? How are you doing this? With just, like, placing yourself in the past. Like, that's fucking... He was, like, summoning walls and setting trap, like, because he could manipulate the past, so he's just...
I love the panel where he just, like, cut the leaf in half, and he's like, did that seem significant? Because, like... It's just one of those things that, like, looks cool, but also it was playing into the fight, because, like, then he swipes the tile, and it's like, oh, he's just doing weird things. But no, actually, no, he's being time manipulator dude.
Well, and I like how it factored into what Rukia said, because what Rukia told Ichigo, because she assumed that he was hit by Tsukishima's blade, and because she was like, don't dwell on the past, think forward. And that's what Byakuya does. He does a very like when Tsukishima like learns everything about him through going into the past and finds out the weakness of his ability. Byakuya, he does like he grabs Tsukishima's sword and he does something very un-Byakuya like. He moves forward in the same way that Rukia was telling Ichigo to. So yeah, it was good. I like that fight was good. Oh, and Rukia had a bit of a fight too. I forgot about her for some reason, even though I was like, yeah, she gets trapped in the stuffed animal, and I'm not sure what else happened in that fight. Yeah, I guess I forgot it because I don't remember what happened. Oh, did you like what did you think of the flashback chapter? Because I kind of thought it was interesting how it was like formatted, where it's like you had one page for a member, and then you have another page for a different member of the Fullbring group. And then you'd like, so the story was like, it was like non-linear, kind of like it was like jumping around between the members. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it threw me off at first because I was like, wait a minute, what's happening? Why are we jumping? But then I realized they weren't all the same story. They were, yeah. So it was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just exploring their backstories, but oh yeah, that's right. The Ruka, she hid inside Rukia and came out at the end. Not sure what to make of that quite yet. But yeah, we get the backstories.
It was kind of funny with like the nature of his ability, or Tsukishima's ability, that what was it? Yeah, where like she got cut, and then because of how his ability works, we had to ensure like, oh no, this is not the one that changes people's memories. This is the one that actually cuts people. What are you doing?
Yeah, that's a little. Yeah, I see what you mean. Well, because it's like I'm definitely gonna talk about this in the future with like readability, because it's like the thing with like weird powers. Well, I guess it happens in like Hunter x Hunter too, where you have the narrator explaining the abilities of some of the Chimera Ants because they have weird abilities. They're not going to talk about them in a sensible story, so it's like but we need to know what the powers do, and you can't always show the nuances of every single power. Especially when it's like the one I always think of is the one wolf guy who had like the missiles, and the missiles had rules regarding the questions he asked. And it's like, so he summons the missiles and he asks the question, and so the narrator explains what's going on so that there can actually be tension in the scene. Because if you don't know what the powers do, then you don't know what the character might have to do to overcome them. So it's like, yeah, the narration makes sense at times. But yeah, this is definitely a scene where it's like if the sword had visual differences, though, it wouldn't have been like. The mystery would have been different, so I understand why, but it was it's a little like, shade clunky.
Yeah, like maybe if it was clunky. in like the anime, you could have had like I don't know, like one swing has like a trail of like light following it or something. It's like this is the thingamaswing, and the other one's thingamaswing doesn't have the thing, and it's like this is a real sword. So I don't know, but yeah, and that's one of those instances where like if Bleach had a narrator, this would have worked here, maybe,
yeah. It was a thought, but so anyway, I'm not sure if I have anything. Do you have anything else to say on the other one-on-one fights?
The only other thing I have right here is there was a little in the Ichigo Ginjo fight. There was a little panel that kind of showed a collection of like panels from Bleach past, and so like for anyone who had been asking like, what do you think of the change in Bleach's art as it goes along? Because I know. At one point, I think, I don't know what interview it was from, but like Kubo had said he wasn't as pleased, or maybe it was in one of the manga volumes, But Kubo had said that like he wasn't as fond of the early Bleach art. It was only after a certain point that he thought that, the art got good. And like I hadn't really noticed it until this little panel here where it shows like a bunch of different Ichigo faces, and like I can kind of see like the very one up on like the top left, there's a little panel from that's very early Bleach, and like I don't know if I'd necessarily say that it's worse than what we see later. It's just like it's different.
It's stunning how far his artists come though, like because you see like the upper left and the middle right, and then you just see like there's a whole spectrum of Ichigo.
Yeah.
So it's like
it's interesting in that like I don't know, his earlier style was I guess a little less.
It wasn't bad, but it was definitely very different. And it's really weird to see them next side by side like that.
Yeah. Like, I wouldn't say it's less detailed, but, like, I don't know, like, it's differently detailed. Like, maybe, I don't even know if I want to say it's simpler. I don't know how to critique art. I'm not an artist guy. I'm not a drawer, so. But, yeah, it's different, and, like, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say one is better than the other, but, yeah, it's just interesting to see. So, for anyone who wanted to know what I thought of the Bleach art, that's what I thought.
So, actually, I want to go back to the Rukia fight a bit because I was paying more, but trying to pay a bit more attention to Riruka, the Fullbring girl, and she hid in Rukia's chest so that she could defend, and she defended her and Ichigo when Tsukishima attacked them after Ichigo beat Ginjo. So, well, because I like the scene afterwards where like Orihime is crying over her because she's glad she's okay, and then. She asks about Tsukishima because like she was wondering if like Orihime was still like made to think that like they were allies by Tsukishima or something. So like she had a doubt in but Orihime was being honest. So,
yeah, because she had mentioned all the people except Tsukishima, and so then when she brought that up, or I forget the name of the character, but she brought it up to Orihime, and Orihime was like, "Who's that?" So like,
yeah. So she was no longer affected by his ability. So yeah. See, I feel like there's like a parallel here between like Ginjo's group of friends and Ichigo and his group of friends. I'm just trying to like remember because I had a thought, but I don't think I wrote it down. So like looking back, the Fullbringers, they wanted like they were alone in the world. They had these weird powers, and but they grouped together like after the fighting, Jackie said that the only reason she was with the Fullbrings was because they had the same powers, like not because of like any matching ideals or personalities or anything, but that was the one thing sort of binding them. So I guess that's a difference between them and the Ichigo's friends, because they have more going than just like powers. So that's interesting because Riruka says that Rukia says that she cannot she doesn't want to desert her friends, but Riruka's kind of saying like they're not friends, like they don't like she felt that as a group they were scattered. So because again, but they at the same time they are kind of allies. So and at that point that's when Riruka hides in Rukia's chest, and eventually comes out to save her. So she's actually kind of like, damn it, I need more time to think about it. Because I just thought the line that she said at the end was interesting, and I couldn't quite figure out why, like what she meant when she says that Ichigo saved Ginjo saved us, and Ichigo saved Ginjo. Like I thought that was interesting, but I couldn't figure it out. So I'll ignore it for now. And let's finally talk about Ichigo versus Ginjo, because I definitely had some things to say about it. Did you have anything you wanted to say? Because the way I see it is like with Ichigo and Aizen, they were like opposites. Ichigo was the one who understood everyone, and Aizen what wanted to be understood, but never tried to truly understand others. But with Ginjo was like Ichigo. Like it's less, instead of a mirror match, it's more of a clone match. They're kind of, that's the whole thing. Like they're both the Deputy Soul Reapers, and but sort of what I see as a difference between the two is that like Ginjo got his badge, and he trusted Soul Society, but then he found out that the badge was actually, it was there to watch him. It was there to monitor his power, and so he took that distrust And then he kind of went from, but since he totally trusted them, he, was fully, but he was betrayed, and that ruined all of his trust. But because when he tells Ichigo, he tells it to them like it's this big revelation, and Ichigo realized that because that Ukitake sort of hinted at it from the beginning. Like Ichigo doubted from the beginning. He never completely trusted Soul Society, and I think that's what separates the two. Because Ginjo trusted them. I feel like Ginjo trusted them because that's the thing. He even says like, "Oh, Ukitake, he's the one who came up with the idea for the Soul Reaper badges." Even though he's a peace loving guy, like he recognized. Like I honestly, I feel like Ukitake probably gave Ginjo the same hint, but he was so he trusted him so completely, he never had any doubts, so he didn't pick up on the hint that the badge was like watching them. And then when he did find out, he felt betrayed, and he rejected Soul Society completely. While Ichigo always had that doubt, so he was able to operate even with not being able to fully trust Soul Society, because so that's like why when Ginjo told him about the badge, Ichigo didn't change, because he had already considered that option. But Ginjo wasn't able to see that because he was just so he's too much of an extreme, while Ichigo's able to understand because he sees both sides of it. That's kind of what I thought about it.
It is interesting to kind of that there's that moment where Ichigo's doubt costs him earlier on, like it costs him his Fullbringer powers, but then here it comes back around where that doubt was in his favor.
It's interesting because it's not quite one way or another. There's a bit more nuance to it. But
and that
because I mean, it's like the thing with the Fullbring powers. Like, the doubt was what caused him to lose his powers, but it's also the lack of trust that kept him from getting in a safer way. So it's interesting. There's a few different ways to go about it. So because there's also like I don't know. I thought it was an interesting conflict, and it was neat to like sit there after I read the fight and think about it for a second and be like, okay, I think that's what was going on.
Yeah, and because there's not like one right way or another to do it, it plays into like the not ambiguity, but like with Ginjo's defeat and the whole thing that like Ichigo was able to see himself in Ginjo, but at the same time refute all that he was.
Right. He because when they were fighting, Ginjo's even noted that he was being understood, but Ichigo was doing his thing. Like he's already that's the thing is this arc he's kind of like he's already gotten so much experience from the previous arcs that he's like Ichigo's not doing anything differently. I don't think this is normal for him, like understanding his opponent and recognizing where their differences lie, and sort of taking. Like with Grimjo, he took Grimjo's ideology into himself, but this time Ichigo doesn't even change. Like he was already sort of set in what he thought. He already disagreed with Ginjo, and it wasn't until they fought and Ichigo really understood Ginjo that he was able to really understand why. But I don't think he quite changed Ichigo, really, because the whole thing is that they're similar. So but I thought it was good. And now rereading the sort of fallout between the Fullbring members, like now that they're lost their boss, it's like now they sort of have to like they followed him so resolutely, they had so much trust in him that now that he's gone, they're all lost and they kind of have to figure their shit out. So and of course we already mentioned the moment between Orihime and Ryuruka.
So on the topic of trust, you can't follow like what's being shown with these Fullbring characters, that you can't follow someone if you follow someone too resolutely, it'll backfire. But like with Ichigo and the Soul Society, if you don't trust them at all, it'll backfire. So like something in middle ground.
Exactly, because that's the thing. Ichigo has no it's not like trust all the time or doubt all the time. It's like I guess it's more of like the middle ground is to doubt. Like Ginjo didn't even give Soul Society a chance. Like Ichigo was able to. Like Ichigo, even though he wasn't being fully trusted by Soul Society, he sort of accepted that as kind of a normal thing. But they were able to sort of help him in his time of need. But with Ginjo, he refused them entirely just because they didn't trust him once. Like that's kind of not fair, I suppose. But
See, if anything, this is just sort of making this is just like, I'm thinking back to that moment with Ichigo and his powers, and it's just, I don't know, with like this conclusion that the arc seems to be drawing, it just feels kind of weird that, you know, Ichigo's the only one. Well, I mean, obviously Soul Society was there too, but like with Ichigo and his friends, like there was that level of trust, distrust there, and it doesn't feel complete. Like, I don't know, it feels like that this arc should have been a little more for the human characters, like to kind of like they didn't trust Ichigo. I don't know, because like it mostly all comes down, like on their side of things, it mostly all comes down to Ichigo, and that just doesn't feel right with the conclusion this arc seems to be drawing about trust.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like, there's conclusion for Ichigo, there's conclusion for the Fullbringers, but like, yeah, what Orihime, Chad, Ishida, like, I mean, there's even conclusion for Soul Society, because you get the bit at the end where where Ichigo goes back to Soul Society, and they talk to him a bit about the Ginjo stuff, and well, because he's, you know, someone asked me about this on Kiri. Oh, we see Shinji's a captain now, which so I'm presuming that basically since Aizen was all that Aizen shit was dealt with, they basically accepted the Vizards back, and possibly Urahara. I mean, he's not. I don't think Urahara is actually a Soul Reaper, like official, but I imagine they've buried the hatchet at least, considering that it was him and Ishin that made the plea for Ichigo's sake. So, well, because someone asked me about how, you know, they asked Shinji was like, are you fine with forgiving Ginjo, you know, considering he fucked with you so much? And, you know, Ichigo's thought it was fine, because he's like, I'm just a deputy Soul Reaper. Like, you know, he connected to Ginjo, they were similar. So, like, they were, I think I mentioned it before, but they were, Ginjo wondered, like, if Ichigo was the first deputy Soul Reaper and he was the second, would their places be switched too? That kind of thing. So, yeah, you know, Ichigo understood him. He was fine. But he's... And yeah, there's no issue with Soul Society either. Like, they just, you know, because they know Ichigo knows about him being watched, and everyone's just, they're fine. So, So yeah, I guess, well, because I guess the thing with the Fullbringers is that, like, they all trusted Ginjo, but they also, like, you know, Riruka didn't trust, she told Rukia she didn't think that as a group they were friends. But then, like, at the end, she's, like, thinking about how Chad trusted them, how Orihime cried over her, like, so... They were, you know, again, like, through not being an extreme, they were able to connect. So, yeah. I'm not sure if I have any more to say, personally.
There was that one panel that they kind of left off on where Riruka is up on that balcony, and then she, like, jumps, and you see the sparks, and I was like, is Kubo, like, did she just jump away, or is Kubo implying, like, suicide here?
I thought that when I saw her standing there, but the Fullbringers, because the whole thing is they can manipulate the soul, so they can jump off the air by manipulating the soul of the air.
Yeah.
So, and you can kind of see her that on under her foot. She's jumping. So I'm pretty sure she's jumping up, away,
okay,
not down.
Because, like,
I get
that was the thing.
I understand. I thought this. I had the same thought, but I saw the next page and I was like, oh, she's fine. She's fine.
Yeah, because normally I might not have had that that suspicion, but just like with this arc, like, some of the Fullbrings survived, some of them died, so, like, I don't know, it seemed like it could have worked here, but, I mean, not like it's super significant to, like, the themes of the arc or anything, whether she lived or died, but it was just interesting.
Yeah, at least I can't think of anything. So, I guess, yeah, that was kind of it. It's just, you know, it's very much like the last arc, at the end of the last arc, in that, like, I mean, in this way, like, there's no way that it's the end of Bleach, just because this is in no way the climax of an entire series, but at the same time, event-wise, like, Ichigo's got his powers back, where do we go from here? Like, I vaguely know what's happening next, because I've heard discussion, but yeah, it's like, aside from that, the next arc's called the 1,000-Year Blood War, and look, another thing is that I thought was interesting about this set of volumes is because it starts with one volume, like, at the very beginning of the volume, and it ends at the very end of the final volume. Like, it's exactly 6 volumes long, and that's weird. Like, that doesn't normally happen. Normally, it picks up and ends mid volume. Like, so, which because I've talked about how I feel like Kubo deliberately writes his manga for the volume release. Like, he's got the poems, he writes the chapters so that they start, the cover page comes a few pages in, and now you have a whole arc that's exactly 6 volumes from beginning to end. Like, it's so fucking weird. But it's neat in a good. It's weird in a good way. But yeah, I don't think I think I've said most of my piece on the arc. I thought it was interesting. I guess to rate it, I would actually put it like just under Soul Society. I think above the Substitute Soul Reaper arc, but under, like, it was definitely good though. Like, that's the thing. It was close.
Wait a minute. You're saying that Fullbring isn't the worst arc in Bleach?
Yes. And I'm saying that, yeah, and it's honestly almost as good as Soul Society and Arrancar, so yeah. Would you rate it under the Substitute Soul Reaper? Or where would you put it?
See,
because I know
like,
what is your current rating, right? I know you have Soul Society at the top. But I don't forget where you place the Arrancar stuff relative to the Substitute Soul Reaper.
I feel like the Arrancar arc, like, if I can figure out what all is going on with it, I don't know. Like, I feel like Arrancar and Soul Society could flip, maybe.
Okay.
But, like, I don't know, because, like, part of me is thinking, like, even though, like, I think that the Fullbring arc is not bad, part of me, like I said, like, my opinion sort of wraps back around to becoming the norm. That, like, I might almost say that this was the quote-unquote worst, or, like, the least good. But, like, there's obviously stuff here. There's just, like, that one... Well, now that I think about it, there's really only the one main moment that didn't really click with me, that I felt like had...
Yeah, yes. The Ichigo's low point, like, immediately getting... undone, which was fair. That's a fair concern. So, and especially if it doesn't get the hopeful payoff later, which I'm sure there's someone in the comments laughing about it. Oh well.
Yeah, so, like, I don't know. I think my opinion might still be up in the air. Like, if we get the, everybody, the human characters get that moment where, the trust thing, everybody being on the same page and getting to protect each other. If that happens, maybe I'll put this above the Substitute Soul whatever arc. If not, this might be at the bottom, maybe, unless the 1,000-Year Blood War is just really bad. But, like, I don't know. I guess I'm not really super high on any of the Bleach arcs, but I'm also not super low on any of them. Like, they're in that mid-range, so, like, ranking them is tough. So I think my official rankings are just gonna wait until the end of the series, because even right now I'm not entirely sure where everything stands.
Okay, that's fair. So yeah, I think Fullbring arc, it's good. It's not good. The worst arc in it's not the worst arc in Bleach, maybe. It's definitely not bad. So anyway, speaking of finishing Bleach, I guess we should talk about our schedule for the next couple weeks, because Anime Expo is happening. Like, if we didn't change the schedule, the final arc of Bleach would be exactly on the same week of Anime Expo, and we can't do that because we'll be at Anime Expo. So we're going to change our schedule slightly. So next week, not 2 weeks from now like normal, but straight up next week, we'll be starting the 1,000-Year Blood War arc. We'll be reading the first half, which is chapter 480 to 571. So almost 100 chapters.
We're back to this again.
Almost 100 chapters. So yeah, we got a lot of reading ahead of us. But then we'll take a week, the normal week break. And then we'll be the week right before Anime Expo. We'll be finishing the 1,000-Year Blood War with chapters 572 to 686. Yeah, and then we'll have Anime Expo. We're both going. And then the week after Anime Expo, you will see the first reading of the first episode of One Piece, and then the week after that, so you'll get another episode of One Piece. So we'll be doing a lot of reading, and you guys have a lot of stuff to listen to. But and then after that, it'll be back to the normal every other week. It should be. So yeah, that's our current schedule. Any other closing remarks?
I don't have anything. Just trying to think of something.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else to say either. But so yeah, see you next week. And thank you for listening.